Welcome to another edition of Chai with Molly, a show where we celebrate diversity the Canadian way. I have been looking so much forward to seeing all of you. I trust you had a great week. Once again, we have a very good show for you, so stay with us. In the studio with me are two remarkable Canadian women who are going to share their perspective on our upcoming elections. Join me in welcoming Sonya Swallow.
Thank you, Molly.
And Lorraine and Sonya. They're both businesswomen and they are here in the studio to share their perspective. So what do you think about what is going on in our upcoming elections?
Well, I think people are very concerned. And as a woman, I have concerns about some of the issues in this election.
What are you most concerned about?
Well, the economy is a very large concern of mine. I certainly know that I'm happy with the results that we've had with our economy over the last 2 or 3 years, and I would like to see that continue. And I have concern that everyone doesn't have the same interest in the economy being what it is right now. I'm not entirely enthusiastic about running deficits for a number of years. I think that we really need to work with our economy the way it's going now and to continue. So that's one of my concerns.
All right. And what are you most concerned about, Sonya?
Apart from the economy, I am concerned about the integration of our people's groups, especially women. You would think that in 2015 that we would have arisen a little higher in the social platform of acknowledgement, of recognition and respect, which we still are not quite there.
All right. So what do we need to do to get there?
Ladies, we work extremely hard in everything we do. It takes us much more time at the same educational level to achieve the status that some of our male colleagues do half of the work that we do to get there. I have worked with women for many years and always encourage them, go for your dreams. It's there, you can do it, and find doors to open and help them to do so.
Is it why we don't see too many politicians in the House of Commons? Right? We only have like 25% of women?
That's correct.
Yes.
And thus it is very difficult for ladies to, first of all, when we come out into the public and we're running in a campaign, in some areas, I won't say all, but in some areas, the women have to fight so much harder because the perception is still there that we don't have the same knowledge base, we don't have the same experience, we don't have the same level of integration with the public, and very often strong, wonderful women are overlooked.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it's true. There's still a glass ceiling.
Yes.
And a double standard. And the standard for women is much higher. The expectation is greater, and so we have to be better. And we are in many cases, but we have to be also willing to get out there and really believe in what we can do and go for our goals.
So we have 3 prominent candidates who have a chance of being our next prime minister. So let's just, talk about each one of them and see what they are doing, or do you think they're doing enough for the women? So let's start with Justin Trudeau. Under his leadership, what do you see happening as far as women or women's rights are concerned?
Well, interestingly enough, the Canadian Constitution, the BNA Act, which is now our Constitution in Canada, does not mention the role of a Prime Minister. The role of the Prime Minister is not mentioned because the Prime Minister is the leader of the party who gains the most seats in a national election. So although I agree that we should be looking very closely at what the leaders are saying, because that's the party platform, we should also be looking very closely at our local candidates and what they are saying, because in the end, they will be representing us. They're our representative in Ottawa. And so we need to know, what is our local candidate going to be saying about women's issues, about how they feel? So not to change your question, but to say that I don't know enough about Justin Trudeau to know what he really thinks. I truthfully cannot give an opinion.
All right, so respond to what he did when he said that everybody who is going to be part of the Liberal Party is going to have to be pro-choice.
Well, that does not reflect or allow anyone with a different perspective to reflect their personal values.
Right.
And we still have representation by population.
Right.
And a party needs to listen to what the constituents are saying.
Right, and that is what we thought, that, you know, our representatives whom we elect, they are there to represent our values. But it was very shocking to me personally when I heard a leader of a very large party that has been very diverse for a very long time to suddenly say that everybody has to think a certain way.
Wow.
Right? So respond to that.
Well, one of the things that, on a personal note, if I may, I attended the National House of Prayer in Ottawa last year, and which many of the women MPs were there, and Mr. Trudeau happened to be there, and each of them are given a piece to read and to share with. These people are from all over Canada, hundreds of them in the room. He changed his at the last minute to another, and that was put in the Globe and Mail. And I thought about it, and I said to myself, just last month you decreed that anyone in your caucus who did not follow party policies and politics would be removed from caucus. The Globe and Mail presented the article praising him on his potential leadership. They allowed room for commentary. I wrote a letter. I said, Mr. Trudeau, with all due respect, I remember very clearly the day you were born. I remember the excitement between your mother and your father that they had a wonderful son given to them by God. And I said, sir, when you asked to change what was given to you, invoking the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, I said, you have to look twice at your own life, because your mother gave you the right to live. Else, sir, you would not be here today.
What did he say? Did you respond?
No, but they put a great big red star beside my letter.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. So that's good. That's really good.
Because the challenge is there. We have the right, but not the right to murder and to make it a part of a party policy. And we look at other nations where, you know, compared to our Canadian birth rate, we are so far below that
well, that's why we have to
level.
take so many immigrants.
Yes.
Every
We
year.
do. We
so
do.
if we allow these babies to be
Yeah.
born,
And have a life.
yes, and there are so many couples who are having challenges in having
yes.
babies, and they'll be happy to adopt these
Yes,
children.
they will.
Absolutely.
And in fact, that's the one thing our Prime Minister has done. And it's extremely important that people realize this in this one particular issue, because he took a stand, a strong stand. You'll remember back in 2011 and then in 2008. And his stand was this, because he was facing the global United Nations policies on this one issue. And those were the days when Hillary Clinton was very pro-abortion, especially the new abortion style, which is hideous. wanted it in Canada. And I wrote a letter to Prime Minister Harper, and he wrote me right back. And what I did is I sent him a copy of an article sent to me from Brownsville, Florida, which was very graphic and showed the pictures of the aborted babies burned to death, sucked out of the womb at 9 months old by scissors being thrown into their brains and a vacuum cleaner sucking their brains. I sent that to Prime Minister Harper, and I said, "Sir, I respect you so highly, and I thank you for your stand and your boldness." The next day on the news, he announced that Canada would not take part in global abortion policies, but we would open the doors for education to women, for the opening the doors to make it easier for adoptions. For parents who wanted children, we would make it possible. And for the mothers who wanted to keep their children, we would put them through college. We would give them jobs. We would give them certain benefits. And I was so proud of what he did.
And that's what we need to do.
Absolutely.
Right?
As an adoptive parent,
Yes.
I'm so thankful for a country that defends the rights of the unborn.
Yes.
At least up until this point has done that.
Yes.
And when we adopted our child, it was 1973.
Oh.
We know what happened in 1972. Abortion became legal in Canada. Some kinds of abortion. So I have great respect for anyone who bravely takes carrying a child that they aren't able or prepared to raise and places that child for adoption. Because in the early 1970s, there were very few children in Canada available for adoption. So it's a blessing to many families, and there were many families who were heartbroken because they were not able to adopt a child from within Canada, and at that time from outside Canada was also extremely difficult. So,
Yes, even now the process I hear is still very complicated and
And
very
expensive.
expensive.
And very,
Yes.
very expensive.
And therefore not affordable for a lot of people. So
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
think one of the things that we would like to tell whoever gets elected is that when you are in office, please look into it and make it easier, right? Because there's so many families here who will be more than happy
Absolutely.
to provide a home for these babies. Okay, so we talked about Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
Let's talk about Tom Mulcair. What do you think he will do should he be elected?
again, he's a conundrum. We don't know what will happen because very sadly the NDP lost their leader and he emerged from within the group, but we don't know much about him really. And I haven't heard him say definitive things about many things. I know certainly that he has what he feels is a plan for the economy, but again, I want a tried and true plan. I do not want somebody to experiment with the economy.
Can
of
you
our
imagine
country.
that?
Well,
Right?
both Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Mulcair have an agenda to cut over half of the wonderful tax credits that the Conservative Party have made possible for every level. People say, well, what about the seniors? My goodness, this is the first time when the RIF has been dropped so low that we can actually save our money and have the other part gaining interest. Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Mulcair are saying that they're going to wipe out the child tax credits. There's families that are just not making $60,000, $70,000 a year. They need those credits for the education of their children.
Yes, and they feel that the government somehow knows better. Families know what is better, right? So I prefer that people be given the money and then they can decide what it is that they want to do with their children. Now, I don't know if you're aware of it, but Mr. Mulcair came out with a statement, and I want you to respond to that. He said Christians in this country are un-Canadian.
Well, I was born here, several decades ago. And
Were you surprised?
I think that I can identify very strongly as a Canadian woman, and I'm somewhat insulted to be spoken about in that manner.
Yes, I came from a political family, and this you'll probably get a chuckle out of, but I came from a family that, you know, they were well-to-do. In my father and my dad didn't want any of that lifestyle, but my great-grandfather was French-Canadian. He was a chief medical officer under Colonel de Salisbury in World War I. When he came back to Canada, he opened up a hospital on the streets of Ottawa, and he was also one of the earliest leaders of the Conservative Party in Canada. He married his daughter, my grandma, married the son of Sir Henry Bate, and they were in the early days liberal, Anglican, and English. And in those days, you did not do that, but they did. However, they learned to get together. Our family respected one another. And one thing my father said to my sister and I many times, girls, don't let anyone tell you that you do not have an opinion because you are women. You have an opinion, and your opinion is very important because it was women who raised our young men when our young men were fighting for the life of our land.
Absolutely. And we should never let someone else's opinion of us become our reality.
Correct. Correct.
And that applies to Mr. Mulcair.
I was really surprised. I mean, this is a grown-up man who is aspiring for the highest office in the land.
Yes.
And for him to have these biased opinions against a very large group of people in the country that he plans to govern if he is to become the prime minister. So that was really disturbing to me. I actually
very much so.
Yes,
that is a very real concern. And what they have said about women, I remember even in the province of Quebec, if you were under 21, you did not have the right. I was accepted at Carleton University for journalism. I couldn't wait to get out into the world and all the nations. My father marches me down to the dean. My daughter's not taking this course.
Why?
So I thought, I'll get around that. I'll go to Algonquin College, do my 3 years there, and go to Queen's for my final. The letter came home. He marched me into a private ladies' business college. He said, you are going to learn business. You're going to get your accounting. You're going to understand commerce. You're going to understand how to work. He said, because when you can get a very strong job, you'll be able to write your stories.
Good thinking.
Good advice.
But that is exactly the way it was in our home. And we had that freedom. And at a very early age, after supper, we listened to the news. From the time we were little, we listened, and my father would say, so what do you think about this? Do you think that's a good policy for the country? And I thought, my goodness, we had to think.
An opinion.
And I shared at the women's luncheon the story about how, when back in the 20s, 7 women, courageous women, came together and said, we are ladies and we are women. And they changed the federal constitution of the land, and women were no longer chattels, we became persons.
Yes, and that's really important. And one day I wanted to come back and I want us to have a conversation about it, because people like me who have come to this great country don't know that history, right? So we just assume that it's always been this wonderful, right? So it'll be nice to hear that story one day. So let's go back to our political campaigns that is taking place right now. So what about Prime Minister Harper? Should we give him another term? He wants to come back one more time. Do you think we should give him another chance? And if yes, why?
Well, my answer is yes. There are a number of reasons. Number one is our support of the state of Israel. Israel does
Yes.
not have any friends in the world today. It's so sad. And in a brave stand for Canadians and on behalf of Canadians, Prime Minister Harper has been there for the state of Israel. And we witnessed so clearly when Mr. Netanyahu came to the United States, how he did not feel he was in a country that was friendly to Israel. In fact, the Iran agreement is very frightening for the state of Israel. So that is one reason why I think I really like what I've seen in the past, and I'd like to see it continue. I've mentioned the economy. We've mentioned women's issues.
What
There are
about
others.
national security?
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
I am so proud of Prime Minister Harper. He is an absolute brilliant genius, but he has heart and soul for the people. And I don't want to reiterate what you've said about Israel, but I will say more. When I was at Pickering, he was at Chris Alexander's function, and we were present. And he stood up in front of that entire crowd. As long as I am Prime Minister, Israel will never be divided, nor will we turn our back, even if we are the last country on the planet.
Yes.
4 years ago, I wrote him a letter when Benjamin Netanyahu was coming. And I know Prime Minister Harper's background and his affiliation. And I said, Prime Minister Harper, I said, remember, there's promises to the nations that join with Israel and do not turn their backs. Promises of blessing, promises of prosperity. The famine will be turned away at the door. We will not be overtaken by our enemies. And I wrote him that letter at 3:30 in the morning. I said, God bless you. He made an announcement that very day with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Oh, he's
in
listening
front of
to
the
you.
oak.
Isn't that amazing? He's reading your letters.
He reads them and he sends them back.
Aww.
And that was the day that he stood up in the House of Commons and he welcomed him with open arms and had everybody stand up and give him a cheer.
Yes,
Now-
and there is very strong support for Israel in Canada. Majority of Canadians.
Except there is something else going on. You mentioned Mr. Mulcair, and you also mentioned Mr. Trudeau. They see no problem in dividing the land of Israel and making it a Palestinian state. What they're not acknowledging is their own history. Jordan, the land of Jordan, was given to the Palestinians as their homeland.
Yes.
And that's in the history books. And those two leaders would very gladly, and they've already made progress with the Palestinian communities.
Yes.
I saw a picture of Obama in the White House. The American flag was there. But guess what? The only other flag was a Palestinian flag. Israel was nowhere on the map. And I say that we must not repeat the mistake of other nations.
Absolutely.
Well, that's
We're
why-
Canadians,
Yes.
not Americans.
That's right. Thank God for that.
Oh,
Thank God for that.
but
I
yes,
just-
that's
yes.
why I believe Mr. Harper, the most foolish thing that could happen would be for him not to be in office again.
Okay, so now respond to that picture that was shown on television about this baby that
All right.
died, that dead baby that was found on the shores of
Turkey.
The world was outraged. Right?
And so we should be.
And the story was that this baby died because Canada did not let
That's
this family
correct.
come.
Because the relatives in British Columbia were willing to accept. But that child died because of the horrific conditions from which they were fleeing, because of the opportunist smugglers who were charging and transporting people in very unsafe ways. And it is a tragedy, and the mother died and the baby died, and there was a home here in Canada for them, but that's not our fault.
No,
We
but the
did not
story goes like this. When this story broke out and everybody was enraged, Alexander, he was on his campaign trail. He left everything, went to Ottawa to find out what was going on with this application. The story goes like this, that there was no application for this family. So, I mean, Canada really was not really responsible for this. I mean, it was horrible that it happened to that child.
Absolutely.
And plus, this family was in a safe country, Turkey.
Yes.
There was no reason for them
No.
to leave Turkey to go to Germany or to go to any other country.
That's correct.
Right?
And do you find it strange that Saudi Arabia, with one of the richest economies in the earth, are not taking in their own people? 100 mosques. I will say no more, but I will say this. Last night at our fundraising dinner, the Armenian community met at the airport 2 Syrian Christian refugee families who came to the dinner right off the plane.
I mean,
And
sometimes
Canada's doing a lot.
We are.
we're doing a lot.
And
yes.
the world.
I don't understand why women want to vote.
Oh, really?
The first time Nellie McClung saw the Premier about votes for women,
Things are changing. Good day, sir.
it didn't go too well for McClung.
Take it from me, Mrs. McClung. Nice women don't want the vote.
So then she staged a mock parliament attacking votes for men.
Think what would happen if we actually allowed men to vote. Why, they would become obsessed with politics. Politics are like drinks. Once you start, if men started voting, families would be disrupted. Divorces would follow. Madam Speaker, take it from me. Nice men don't want the vote.
After a long campaign, Manitoba's women became the first to get the provincial vote.
Dear, nice to
The
see you,
next time they met,
Good
in a
morning,
polling
gentlemen.
station, it didn't go too well for the Premier.
Premier Roblin, I'm sure you don't want your photograph taken with a woman who's not nice. Gentlemen.
Hey, Sean. Why worry? The documents are taken care of by Mr. Nanda. Hi, Priya. Just call Mr. Nanda for all your legal needs. Bye. When you have Nanda and Associate lawyers, you need not worry. After all, they're known for fast and best results.
We care.
That's all for this week. I hope you enjoyed our show as much as we enjoyed preparing it for you. If you would like to be a guest on our show or would like to advertise with us, you may contact me at 647-979-3220. But before I go, I want to remind you once again that to be good and kind to a stranger is a good thing.